Let there be light. Welcome to Holy Shit. This week we're talking about the top 10 imaginative, surprising, and just plain cool fantasy creatures in the Bible. Wait a minute, what? Fantasy in the Bible? I thought everything in the Bible was real stuff. Well, if that's true, then God's got some splaining to do. Because besides being full of magic and magical beings, the Bible is also full of magical creatures. But this shouldn't come as a surprise when the first character in the book to be given any lines after God is a snake. Yeah, I don't think snakes really have the right vocal tracts or tongues to produce the same sounds as humans, but whatever. While it's true many adherents of the Bible will choose to dismiss some of the sillier things mentioned as merely allegorical, which is true, these same people will choose to believe other things of fantasy elsewhere in the book as factual truths and history, ignoring obvious inconsistencies with reality, perhaps fueled by a strong desire to maintain one's faith. But if we are to believe any one of these fantasies described in the Bible as a recording of a real event based on this book, then why not the others? If I said I believed in elves and cited The Lord of the Rings, would it make sense for me to say, but orcs aren't real? What basis, even within my own convoluted logic, do I have to say, The Lord of the Rings proves elves are real, but orcs aren't real, that was an allegory? The Bible proves people can rise from the dead, but talking snakes aren't real, that was an allegory. Similarly, many people simply aren't aware or cognizant these fantasy creatures play such important roles in the Bible's stories. Now in the King James Version, unicorns, dragons, satyrs, and even cockatrices all get brought up at various points. But given the surrounding context and lack of elaboration, many believe better translations exist corresponding to real animals. And I tend to agree, so I won't be putting any of those in my list. These will all be fantasy creatures explicitly described in the Bible, having named interactions with important characters unmistakably woven into their stories. Here's my top 10 fantasy creatures found in the Bible. Number 10.
The Seraphim. Above him stood the Seraphim. Each had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 2.
The seraphim, which translates to burning ones, are celestial 6-winged beings that hold the highest rank in the Christian angelic hierarchy, being said to stand above God himself at the throne. Stupid thing about it though, even though they have 6 wings, they only use 2 of them to fly. The other 4 they just use to cover up their faces and feet. Lame! Good God! Do something cool with those! You got 6 damn wings! But no! Apparently they just fly around singing praises to the Lord all the time. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Holy, holy, holy shit, you guys, shut up! We get it by now. You're driving the rest of us nuts. Do a stunt. You got 6 wings. What else do these things even do? I don't know. We're just trusting this guy's word named Isaiah. Apparently he had some legit info straight from God. Yeah, by the way though, Isaiah, what are these things you're talking about that none of us have ever heard of? 6 wings? Dude, that was a dream. We're not gonna base a religion off of a dream. What? Number 9.
Angels. Then Jesus said to him, Put your sword back into its place. For all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Do you think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? Matthew chapter 26, verses 52 and 53.
Angels. God's messengers, as well as Jesus' goons in case anybody tries messing with him. But as famous as God's angels may be to the Christians, Muslims, Jews, and Major League Baseball, interestingly enough, angels weren't the original idea of the Abrahamic faiths. In fact, they all owe it to the now deemed pagan religion of Zoroastrianism that first introduced the concept of angels, as well as demons, hell, and even the idea of a singular god and devil. Of course, for being the most recurring species in the Bible, you'd think we'd have a clearer picture of what they are, but we really don't. Details are sparse. In fact, it's not even clear if there's such a thing as female angels, as the only named angels are Michael and Gabriel, and the rest carry masculine identifiers. However, we could assume that these must be quite attractive men, dreamboats, hunks even, because in Genesis 19, when 2 angels are visiting Lot, the men in town are practically ripping his door down to hump these hotties from heaven.
Hey, Lot! Bring out those sexy angels so we may have sex with them. No way! Take my daughters instead. They're virgins.
Ooh, virgins. Virgin. No. We've seen your daughters, lot. Bring out the boys. That's what you wanted, boys, right?
Yeah.
And those guys were from a city called Sodom. Sodomy. Get it? Number 8.
Ghosts. And she said, an old man is coming up, and he is wrapped in a robe. And Saul knew that it was Samuel, and he bowed with his face to the ground and paid homage. Then Samuel said to Saul, why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? 1 Samuel chapter 28, verses 14 through 15.
Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call this story The Ghosts of the Bible. Do you believe in ghosts? Well, you shouldn't, because they're not real. For about as long as there's been the concept of a ghost, there has similarly been a lack of evidence for a ghost. I guess you could say the evidence for a ghost is a bit of a ghost itself. But not according to the Bible. 2 Corinthians, be damned, just because we'd rather be at home with the Lord doesn't mean we won't want an occasional vacation. Take Samuel, for example. He just up and raises from the dead to talk to Saul, gets summoned by a medium and everything. Jesus also summons the ghosts of Moses and Elijah as told in the Gospels. Yeah, according to the Bible, ghosts are real, people can come back as ghosts, and being a medium or necromancer is a real thing. And I'll admit, the Bible is not the only source of this claim. In fact, this is also the stance held by the movie Ghostbusters, Casper, The Sixth Sense, Paranormal Activity, Paranormal Activity 2, The Haunting, Poltergeist, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts, Ghost Dad starring Bill Cosby, and Courage the Cowardly Dog. Pretty hard to argue against that. According to logic, reasoning, science, and common sense, however, there's no ghosts. Number 7.
Giants. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. His spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verses 5 through 7.
So, one of the most controversial things mentioned in the Bible is the existence of giants. Speaking of numerous races, including the Nephilim and the Amorites, among others. But with over 6,000 modern finds of human fossils, evidence points to the contrary of there actually being giants in our family tree, despite the existence of other supersized mammals in the past. But maybe the Bible was simply exaggerating the stature of exceptionally sized human beings. Does it make sense from that perspective? Well, we all know Goliath, the Bible's most famous giant, who is described as being 6 cubits and a span tall. A cubit is the length from the elbow to the fingertips, which would have been about 17.5 inches to the Hebrews of the time. And a span is the length from the tip of the thumb to the tip of the pinky, about 9 inches. But for argument's sake, let's say these are not accurate conversions. What other frame of reference do we have? Well, the size of the ark that Noah builds is also described in cubits, equating to roughly 47 Goliaths long, less than 8 Goliaths wide, and a mere 5 Goliaths tall. If we use our earlier conversion, then Goliath stands over 9 feet tall, putting him about half a foot above the height of the tallest man to ever live. Of course, then our ark, that apparently housed 2 of every single animal on Earth, was only about the length of the Eiffel Tower's base, clearly not even close to being enough space to house that amount of animals, suggesting the Bible's cubit would have been much longer than 17.5 inches, and thus Goliath would have been much, much taller than 9 feet, perhaps 20 feet or more, absolutely to the degree of fairy tales. Meaning, the only kind of giant Goliath was a giant impossibility. Number 6.
Demons! No one had the strength to subdue him night and day among the tombs and on the mountains. He was always crying out
and cutting himself with stones. Mark chapter 5, verses 4 through 5.
Demons. They may possess us, they may torment us, they may even take on physical form. But do you recall the most famous demon of all? Satan. Yeah, Satan, who, well, remember how I said there weren't any dragons in the Bible? Well, that is except for Satan. He can turn into a dragon. Badass. Yeah, the book of Revelations describes all kinds of other fucked up demons too. Take the human-faced locust with women's hair, lion's teeth, and scorpion powers. There's all kinds of fucked up demonic creatures that will supposedly erupt from hell in the end of days. All very creative. Other demons are a bit more subtle than scorpion locust people, such as the massive demons known as Legion, described in the Gospels, that Jesus expels from either one or two different people, depending on which book of the Gospels you're reading, because they don't agree on this point, or many points. But I suppose that's forgivable, considering Jesus just exorcises all kinds of demons in the Bible. Who could count?
Hey, did you just see Jesus expel those demons from that guy?
I thought it was two guys.
Number 5.
The Behemoth. Behold a behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold his strength in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. Job chapter 40, verses 15 through 18.
Once upon a time, in the guise of a whirlwind, God appeared to this sad sack named Job, and after saying many other things, started bragging about this sick-ass monster he created called the Behemoth, a beast of many epic qualities. Some people think this is just referring to a hippo or an elephant, but does the description fit? Why don't we find out in a little game we like to call, What Does This Sound Closer To? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to everyone's, many people's favorite game show, What Does This Sound Closer To? The game where we take the description of the fabled behemoth straight from the Bible and try to figure out, is this talking about something else? For those playing at home, tell them what they can win today, Rob.
Winners of today's round of What Does This Sound Closer To can look forward to thinking for themselves. Also, special select winners will receive a vacation to beautiful clarity of the mind.
Wow, incredible! Thanks, Rob. Let's hear our first passage then.
He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together.
What does this sound closer to? A hippopotamus or Godzilla? That's right! The correct answer is Godzilla! With a massive tail capable of knocking over entire buildings, Godzilla comes much closer to matching the description of the behemoth than a stubby little hippo. Let's hear our next question then.
His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron.
What does this sound closer to? An elephant or Mechagodzilla? That's right! This is a more accurate description of Mechagodzilla, whose bones may not be bronze, but they are made of space titanium, which is a lot closer than collagen, let me tell ya! Now, I can hear it at home already. Father Jozef, if you think this sounds like a Godzilla or a Mechagodzilla, maybe it's referring to a dinosaur, like a sauropod. Lots of people think this, and it does match the description better than any other real-life animals. But, hold on. Cut the music, Rob. Cut the music, Rob. The Bible says the behemoth resided in the Jordan River. Dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago. Back then, Israel was covered by an ocean. There was no Jordan River. In other words, it's not a dinosaur. In fact, the behemoth doesn't match the description of any real-life animals because it's an imaginary animal. You know what they say, if it looks like a duck and acts like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And if it looks like a hippo mixed with a dinosaur and acts like an ox and reminds you of Godzilla, it's make-believe. Number 4.
The Leviathan. Out of his mouth go flaming torches, sparks of fire leap forth. His breath kindles coals, and a flame comes forth from his mouth. Job 41, verses 19 through 21.
God? Yeah, hi, it's me, Jozef. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Breathes fire? Yeah. In the book of Job, right after God takes credit for creating the behemoth, he describes an even more insane monster known as the Leviathan in greater elaboration. Basically, it's a giant fire-breathing sea monster, and God really lays it in on thick about this thing to Job.
Yeah, Job, really? You're gonna argue with me? Really, dude? People capitalize my name as a pronoun.
Did you notice I'm a whirlwind right now? Yeah, you want to mess with me? You're gonna lose. You ever heard of Leviathan? You know, that super sick sea monster covered in like impenetrable shields, breathes fire, sneezes light, and his heart is a stone. It's level 100. That's my pet. What do you think of that, huh? I am the Lord.
Alright, yeah, I'll admit it's pretty impressive God made a sea monster. But what could possibly be more impressive to me than a fire-breathing sea monster of unspeakable doom? Well, would $3.5 billion worldwide sound impressive to you? Because that's the kind of money a movie franchise co-starring our next fantasy creature would pull in. Number 3.
A talking donkey! Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, Because you have made a fool of me. Numbers chapter 22, verses 28 and 29.
That's right. In the Bible, there's a quarreling duo of a guy with a weird name on a journey with a talking donkey who annoys him and he's abusive towards. I see you ripping off the book of Numbers, Shrek. But let's be fair, Shrek was a movie that referenced lots of classic fairy tales. Why should the Bible be left out? Now, does a talking donkey really qualify as its own fantasy species? Well, look, I think so. I mean, we have now established 2 very famous talking donkeys. The one in the Bible and the one voiced by Eddie Murphy. You got Mr. Ed, who's like the cousin. This is a great children's cartoon waiting to happen. It'll be the Ed, Ed and Eddie for a new generation. Mr. Ed, the donkey from the Book of Numbers, and Eddie Murphy. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but imagine the hijinks. Huh? Number 2? Number 2? Now, I know a lot of you are going to say, What? That's not in the Bible. I don't ever remember that coming up in church. That's fair, but hear me out. I'm just going to recite this passage and then we'll all say what we think. Matthew 27:50. And Jesus cried out with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in 2 from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. So Jesus cries out in a loud voice, and then a bunch of corpses reanimate and raise out of their tombs and go walk amongst the city. And what do we call those? Can we pull that screen up again now?
Zombies.
I hate zombies in the evening.
But zombies? Only number 2? Didn't I direct and star in a zombie movie before entitled The Amateur Monster Movie, available now at SpadeHeartClub.com? For that matter, what could possibly be stranger than zombies in the Bible? Number 1.
Cherubim. As for the likeness of their faces, each had a human face. The 4 had the face of a lion on the right side, the 4 had the face of an ox on the left side, and the 4 had the face of an eagle. Such were their faces, and their wings were spread out above. Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 10 through 11.
Sure, why not? Now wait, cherubim, you mean these things? Fat little babies with wings is number 1? No. You're thinking of a poodle. A cherub, as described in the Bible, is actually quite a bit more freakish than that. So what the fuck is this animal acid trip? Well, isn't it obvious? Nobody has any fucking clue. Valiant effort, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm pretty sure Ezekiel clearly stated these things were followed by wheels within wheels that hover along and have rims covered in eyeballs. Come on, don't forget about that. Nonetheless, somehow, confusion exists as to exactly what the cherub refers to in the Bible. While Ezekiel is fairly explicit in his description, God also mentions cherubim quite a bit to Moses when exacting the construction plans for the Ark of the Covenant, but never says what they are or what they look like. It just seems to be assumed that everyone will already know. But given the confusion that exists today, what did Aaron think when Moses came to him with these blueprints from God?
Wow, Moses, this is gonna be awesome. I love the design plans for this.
It's gonna be incredible.
Yeah. There's just one thing I'm curious about. Why do you mention adorning it with so many cherubim? Like, the gold against acacia wood, it's really classy, but...
Oh, yeah, God wanted that.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, he wanted the cherub on the tabernacle, everything. Mm-hmm.
Well, it just seems like an obsessive amount of little naked flying babies.
Wait, what?
The naked little flying babies, a cherub?
Dude, that's not what a cherub is. It's badass. It's a giant four-faced flying monster. It's got the face of an ox, the face of an eagle, the face of a human. The best of all, it's got the face of a lion. It can fly and shit, dude. It's badass.
Yeah, dude, that's not what a cherub is. It's those naked, stupid little flying babies.
No. Okay, that's not a cherub. Who can settle this? Miriam! Yes? Miriam, we've got a question for you. What's a cherub?
Oh, you mean those fat little babies with wings?
God, see? No, it's badass, you guys. It's badass. It's a four-faced flying monster. It's got four faces. It's badass. One of them's a lion.
Yeah, it was supposed to be badass, and then the Catholic Church during the Protestant Reformation of the 1600s ruined it. Just like the Bible was supposed to be taken as mythical, and then the Protestant Reformation of the 1600s ruined that too. Well, I'll tell you. The day I see a cherub, that is the day I will take everything in the Bible at face value. You want to talk about when pigs fly? How about when human lion ox eagles fly? Of course, is it really a fair interpretation to believe that this was ever even meant to be taken that way as real? Isn't it more likely that these stories were written to be stories and not history? Doesn't it make more sense that a book filled with fantasy is fantasy? I mean, unicorns, you guys. Seriously, King James Bible has unicorns in it. Numerous times. Once again, this came about during the Protestant Reformation, and that's when people started taking this book more seriously, when they added unicorns and dragons. God help us.